This is Mortification of Spin, a bully pulpit from the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. To learn more about the Alliance, visit alliancenet.org or call 800-488-1888. After the podcast, listen for details on how you can receive a free resource.
Well, today we're broadcasting from a frat house at a well-known college, which shall remain nameless to avoid embarrassing the authorities. I'm here with Todd Pruitt, as usual, and Amy Bird, who's managed to get into the house because, of course, she is an honorary guy. And we're here to discuss legal developments relative to freedom of expression, freedom of religion on campuses in the United States. On the 26th of June this year, Robert Gregory wrote an article for First Things. It's one of their web exclusives. We'll put a link to it on the website for this program, entitled "Baudouin Told Us to Go, the Narrow Doors of Campus Access." And here he's reflecting on the implications of a Supreme Court ruling of 2010, Hastings Christian Fellowship versus Martinez, which allows universities to shape student organizations according to the prevailing culture of the institution, even when that prevents the organization from adhering to a different view of the world than that which is dominant at those institutions. So, for example, one could have an insistence by the university authorities that a non-Muslim headed up the Islamic Society, or as Mr. Gregory is talking about in this article, you could have the insistence that a non-Christian heads up the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. Clearly, this has significant implications for campus Christian ministry and Christian life, and we thought we'd throw it open for discussion today. Todd, are you still with us?
I am still with you, having a bit of technical difficulties here and there, but yeah,
I could see your eyes closing. That was the
well, all of this talk of colleges just reminds me of education, which is a big bore. I can't imagine working in the field.
Yeah.
That was a shot at you, Carl. I don't know if you appreciated that or not.
I was going to say, you can't imagine working within the field either, imagine, even as a student.
Exactly.
Yeah, Texas guys.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because as I thought about this situation, read the article, as well as other similar situations going on in parts of the country, it presents a real challenge for Christian organizations, in this case colleges, if they're going to continue to self-identify as Christian, what that identity means, and to help people understand that a Christian identity relates not only to what we affirm about the gospel, but all things that the Bible affirms, biblical sexual ethics, etc. And where's the intersection between identifying as a specifically Christian organization and a person's right to associate with whatever group he wants to, although I can't imagine why a non-Christian would want to associate with a Christian organization except for maybe their own personal entertainment.
Or subversion, I think.
Exactly.
The agent provocateur kind of approach,
right,
which certain activist groups will almost certainly adopt, I would think.
Exactly. And part of my concern about this is how's this going to translate to the church, to local churches, because I'm not one to be an alarmist, but I can't imagine, and again, this story just being a microcosm of the larger problem, I can't imagine that churches are not going to have to deal with this. Must we be required to, for instance, discriminate against hiring homosexuals as musicians or other types of ministry leaders? Is that going to become a violation of the law for the church to discriminate on those bases?
I kind of look at it as an opportunity for the church in some ways, because I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I mean, because on one hand, these policies are complete nonsense. Clearly, an academic knows that a religious group will need to use religious discernment and qualifications to select its leaders. But at the same time, I'm looking at this as like, okay, here's these student-led discipleship groups where it's really the church's call and the church's responsibility to evangelize and disciple and to discern and not student leaders. So, this might be a good chance for the church to fund church-led ministries to evangelize in these college campuses.
And this is one of the reasons I'm thankful to be in the PCA, is because for precisely that reason, because we have Reformed University Fellowship. Because on the one hand, Amy, I do agree with you. There are some issues with some, not all, but with, well, first of all, I mean, we've said before that there are some things about the parachurch that we're thankful for, but also things that cause us some concern, and I think justifiable concern. And clearly, ultimately, the work of making disciples belongs to the church. Mm-hmm. And that's why churches, denominations, ought to have campus outreach, disciple-making ministries, so that those ministries are tied to the oversight and fellowship of a church.
Right. So, I mean, it really raises the question, how can we best preserve the church and then share the good news in this culture that is hostile to Christianity? Obviously, this case shows. Mm-hmm. How can we best do that now? Like, how can we make this our focus?
Yeah, although I'm less sanguine about this. I think, I take the issue of, this isn't the church, it's a parachurch group, and therefore, we shouldn't get too broken-hearted, if you like. It's not devastating to the church when a parachurch group is squeezed. But I would say it's significant for the way society is going in general. What we're seeing here is a restriction of freedom of speech in some ways. Now, clearly it's not government-sponsored, but the government is permitting it. It's not the government closing down speech. It's college presidents or councils are restricting freedom of speech. But it does fit within a general legal trajectory, I think, that indicates that freedom of religion in the United States is increasingly coming to be understood as freedom to worship in your place of worship. So I would see this as standing on a continuum with other judgments about the rights of people to allow their religion to affect their role in the marketplace. We've seen that kind of language coming out in certain legal opinions in the last 12 months. So I would say on that front, it concerns me just socially that we're moving towards a bland conformity being imposed by the inroads of political correctness into legal judgments in this country. Yeah. And secondly, I'm not convinced that this judgment will not impact something like RUF. As I read the article, it seems to be talking about campus groups. It's not talking about parachurch campus groups. It's talking about campus groups in general. So I could see a university turning around and saying, we don't like what the PCA stands for. They're homophobic. They're misogynist. You're not welcome on our campus. So I think that RUF doesn't solve this particular problem. IVCF are the particular pressure point in this article, but I think the wider world doesn't make the distinction between church and parachurch, and would see RUF as very much embraced under the same kind of legal judgment.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's a good point to make, because while, back to Amy's point, while I really appreciate the fact that the church is ultimately that body that must be responsible for evangelism and the making of disciples, the church is the one that before the Lord is responsible for that. That said, RUF is not going to be treated differently by a school or by the government because they happen to be affiliated with a denomination. In fact, as you point out, Carl, the fact that RUF is a denominational ministry of the PCA may in some ways make them more of a target, in that they can't just separate themselves from the doctrinal claims of the PCA. The claims that the PCA makes on biblical sexual ethics and the gospel, etc., are very, very clear. And so they're not going to, RUF can't kind of mold around those things. It's very easy to know the doctrinal position of RUF because they're associated with the PCA. Mm-hmm. So in that way, it could make it even more difficult for RUF.
Well, and combining what you two just said, I mean, the decision obviously just kind of evidences the sort of poetic justice that Paul labors to explain in Romans 1, where, here's the academy like not acknowledging God, so God's giving them over to their foolish minds. And so, I mean, it really does become this crossroads where we're trying to clarify the integrity and the responsibilities of the church and the university. I just think when I was going to college, and my first 2 years, I was definitely backslidden as a Christian. And I'm walking through the main part of the campus, and there was a campus crusade ministry there. And they're like, do you know what you need to do to be saved? While I was walking by, I knew how to answer that question. I gave them the right words to say, and I got a big smile and a, good job, pat on the back kind of thing. And I moved on with my bad life. And then about, I don't know how much longer later, but about halfway through college, when I realized, okay, I'm not living as I'm supposed to be living as a Christian. This is not who I am. And I returned to convictions of my faith. I never went to that college ministry. I went to church.
Yeah.
And, so I kind of felt like that was cheesy in some ways. Not to say that there's not great work that they do. And I, respect and admire that. But it would be nice for the church to be able to highlight itself as the church.
Yeah. And that is one of the weaknesses of the parachurch organizations, is that by their very nature, they have a very weak ecclesiology, which means, unfortunately, that a student can get very involved in a campus ministry, but as soon as they leave college, it's like they become untethered. They have not become churchmen or churchwomen during their college years. And so when they leave campus, they leave everything that's anchored them to the faith. And again, that's one of the strengths of a campus ministry that is a part of a strong denominational ministry. I know in the case of RUF, for instance, that part of their goal is to anchor those students to a church for the very reasons that you mentioned. And Carl, to your point,
that's beautiful.
I'm bothered by the very same things that you mentioned, Carl, because as I read this and look at this silliness, because it is silliness.
Oh yeah.
This presents no problem whatsoever to the Constitution.
No,
to have
either you allow religious groups or you don't.
Exactly. There's no constitutional crisis here. What bothers me, Carl, is that same point you make, what this says about us as a society, because we're turning into a people who believe that it is an inalienable right to never hear anything that they disagree with. And so it is ironically becoming the university campus where things like speech codes are being enacted. It's very Orwellian in that way.
Yeah, I mean, jokes are now hate speech. Religion is seen as beyond the pale. Anybody who disagrees with gay marriage is seen as somehow dangerous. It's quite absurd. I mean, on one level, I'm encouraged that people think that Christianity is dangerous enough to want to suppress it. That's good.
Absolutely.
That's something to be encouraged by. It's just sad to see human beings shutting down their brains in the name of freedom, ironically. The sort of the totalitarian mindset that's setting in, not totalitarianism politically, but the mindset whereby dissent and deviation is regarded as fundamentally dangerous and unacceptable. That's highly problematic.
Yeah.
And the irony of it all is that it's the religious groups that are being accused of being discriminating.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes back to that comment I made to Todd a few weeks ago when I was in Georgetown recently. I went to the tobacco store, and it's almost as if tobacco stores are the last bastions of freedom. You walk through the door and there's people smoking there and doing all this stuff that you're not supposed to do at the very same moment that there's a gay pride rally gearing up outside. And I thought, where does true freedom and diversity lie here? Is it in the rainbow flag outside or the sad characters in here smoking weed?
I maintain that the cigar shop is one of the last bastions of freedom in our country. No doubt about it.
Or your porch outside, right?
True. Yeah. In Carl's case, his garage. Yeah.
We need PJ O'Rourke on this program.
Yes.
He was a champion of freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been interesting. I'm curious as to see where some of this goes. Again, just for the sake of our society, I'm concerned about this clampdown of free speech that we see on the university campus. But the problem is those sorts of infringements on free speech seem to be quite popular among the students, and I don't think that that's going to make us a robust culture going forward. But we promise, Carl and Amy and I, to remain robust and offensive as we possibly can. I've gotten Carl to start taking up a pipe. Next thing, we're going to get a pipe for Amy.
I hope to share my moonshine with you guys.
Exactly. Amy, we're going to get you smoking like a chimney very soon.
I see Amy more as a tobacco chewer, actually, than
Now that's exactly where we need to go. So until that happens, hopefully here in the next week or so, and Amy is chewing tobacco. Thank you for joining us for Mortification of Spin, Bully Pulpit, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
This has been Mortification of Spin, a podcast of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. Alliance ministries include Reformation21.org and events held from Florida to Sacramento. To learn more about the Alliance, visit alliancenet.org or call 800-488-1888. We can only continue to bring you Mortification of Spin with your support. To make a donation, please visit mortificationofspin.org or call 800-488-1888. Please listen again, and don't forget your free resource.
tobacco stores are the last bastions of freedom.